Welcome to the Hybrid Coaching Podcast, your resource for all things hybrid fitness. I'm Anthony Parasini, your host from the Hybrid Engine Coaching and Training Program, and joining me is the phenomenal James Kelly, a HYROX Elite 15 athlete and head coach and owner of JK Hybrid Coaching. In this podcast, we are dedicated to catering to everyone in the hybrid fitness community. Whether you're a coach, an elite athlete, or someone just starting out on their fitness journey, we are here to provide you with valuable insights and strategies in the hybrid fitness world. From mastering the intricacies of HYROX and DECA competitions to refining your strength and conditioning training techniques, we've got you covered. For those of you who are new to hybrid fitness or simply want to enjoy the health and beauty benefits without the pressure of competition, we're here for you too. We'll break down the fundamentals, offer tips for getting started, and help you build a solid foundation for your fitness journey. Each episode, we tackle a specific topic and we break it down in a way that's accessible and applicable for everyone. So whether you're a seasoned coach, an elite athlete, or someone just dipping their toes in the world of hybrid fitness, join us as we dive deep into the education, information, and inspiration you need to reach your goals. Let's make hybrid fitness work for you. All right, how you doing today, JK?
Good, thanks, Anthony. Mate, round two, here we go.
Here we go. Today we are talking about general fitness and how we use our general fitness to maintain higher ability and greater structure for our overall racing ability.
And I think stemming on obviously how we finished our last podcast, I think the one thing that I've learned, especially the last 18 months in my HYROX journey as a coach and also as an athlete, the importance on general fitness, and what that means is being able to be more varied than what you think. So that's kind of my first question, I guess, to kind of kick it off. Like, what does I guess variability mean in training, Anthony?
Yeah. So great segue here. That's exactly what I was thinking too, is the general fitness would be, how do we use our definitions of hybrid, because we talk about hybrid racing. How do we use our definitions of hybrid to encompass a broader range of fitness ability? And kind of the way I see that general fitness is, you don't just train the movements that are involved in the races you're doing. You got to get more than that. And just to borrow a little from CrossFit, it's broad times and modal domains. So you have to be able to be fit across a wide variety of time domains, whether that's, 3 minutes long, or in our case, generally, we tend towards the longer side, more endurance, which could be 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 2 hours, but have the ability to go from a 2-hour race and still be pretty good, or have the ability to at least put your full effort into those shorter ones as well. So you can have that spike, but you can still perform across a long duration.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
No, I was just kind of like going to just state, I think there's a lot of, let's just say, there's still a lot of the demographic who is in the HYROX circle now, right? That sees what HYROX is. And the beauty of it is that it never changes. So you know what you're going to get, right? And a lot of people see it and go, okay, 1K run, 1K ski, 1K run, 50 minutes sled push, yeah, et cetera, right? Why don't you just train like that all the time? What's your reasoning? What's your, like, why don't you just drill those movements in time and time again? even to the point where you're actually just doing the like it for a lot of people that just makes sense to just do it time and time again. Break that down for me even more.
So if I get what you're asking here, we want to know, well, if I want to run a 1 hour high rocks, why don't I just keep running exactly what a high rocks is,
Yeah.
1K into the station over and over and over again, exactly in the same order until I can get down to an hour if I could just keep increasing my ability, right?
Correct.
So,
Yep.
so the reason you don't do things like that is because, um, first off, you'll get diminishing returns after a little while, right? So you'll improve the first time, the second time, you might take minutes off the second and third time you do something. But if you're only training those movement patterns, you can get your body stuck into those movement patterns, right? Um, One of the things we like to talk about is if you train even the movements that you're not going to be using exactly, but you're training all those stability muscles, you're training all those little muscles that are actually holding you together. Your body is never one, we're not a perfect machine. We're never only using these muscles, right? You're not only using your hamstrings and glutes and calves when you run. You're still like swinging your arms, your back. You got to remain upright in your core. Like everything is tensed a little bit. And one of the good things about training in different modalities is that when you do that, you actually have your muscles help. They get better and better at clearing that lactate. So when there is lactate buildup in your blood, again, it's not specific. It's not, oh, this blood contains lactate. Let's send it to the muscles that are working, right? Like, and this blood doesn't. Well, it's just going to go wherever.
Right.
Your blood
Yeah.
goes back to your heart pumps it out. And, these cells that were just in your leg can go out to your arm. Like they, they go all over the place. So if you have trained in different modalities and you've trained your body to be able to clear that lactate through like all your filter processes and everything, and to use the lactate cycle, the Krebs cycle, to be able to uh, clear lactate in your muscles, they're going to actually get fuel and they're going to use that. Uh, so it actually helps your body regulate it a little bit better. So by training in other modalities, you also help your body to clear better, right? So you get
Right.
overall fitter. So it's a broader range of general fitness. Now, uh, at the same time, is you think of it like a sport like weightlifting. Okay, if I want to say lift my body weight in a clean and jerk, right? And that's all that I can do is my body weight is the maximum clean and jerk I have. Well, if I want to be able to lift my body weight 10 times, but that that at the time my 1 rep max is my body weight, then it's going to take longer and longer spaces in between.
Right.
But if I can train all the elements of it, like especially where my weakness might be, say like I'm not very good at pulling, or if I'm doing a clean and jerk, I'm not very good at the front squat portion of it. Like I can pull it up, I can deadlift 500 pounds or something, and I can always pull my clean and jerk and get it to my shoulders, but I get buried in the squat and I can't stand it up. So there's my weakness. Or
Yeah.
I can't push it over my head. So there's my weakness. Well, instead of training the whole movement, I can overload sections of it and I can just train the front squat, or I can just train the jerk, or I can do portions of it where I hit my sticking points, right?
Mm.
So that's super important. So if I want to increase my max, right, I just do those little things and then I go back to it. And I have to get the technique and drill it down. And then eventually, if my max goes up, the number of times I could lift my body weight will go up, right? So
Yeah.
if I'm, say, for easy math, say I'm 200 pounds and I want to be able to lift, right now my maximum is 200-pound clean and jerk. If I focus and work on my max and I get to a 300-pound clean and jerk, how many times do you think I'm going to be able to lift 200 pounds
Yeah.
now?
Correct. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So along the same lines is like running. If I have a 5-minute mile, how long do you think I'm going to be able to maintain a 6-minute mile for these high rocks runs.
Yeah.
But in order to get faster, I got to focus on that because I'm not going to be able to pull a large duration down by doing the high rock simulation over and over again.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because just going back to my I guess background or what I've been doing, I saw high rocks a lot more, let's just say specific 18 months ago when I first started, meaning the way I was training then was a lot more just compromise running and the movements, getting stronger, but also just hammering the sleds, hammering the burpees, hammering the lunges. To now having a lot, 18 months later, having a broader perspective and a broader general fitness routine and program. The one thing that, that has kind of got me thinking is, okay, general fitness, right? The bigger your general fitness is, the more consistent your races should be, right?
Yep.
So how do you measure your general fitness though? Like,
I don't know if there's a way to exactly measure it, but I'm gonna back up just a second. The way you started out was not wrong. If I was taking somebody, right, brand new, never done the sport, you can get minutes. Like I said, like the first few times you run a sim, you can get minutes and minutes out of it, but you're going to get
right.
diminishing returns. So that's a great way to start. But then from there, you need to add in more in order to keep progressing.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not like, oh, I'm going to just for a year run sims. I'm talking like maybe, the first 4 to 6 weeks, get a little specific.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, on to your question about like general fitness, how do you measure it? Well, here's the question: is if you look at somebody who's in, we take the sport of high rocks, um, look at somebody that's in there and take them and put them in a different sport, would they still be a top performer, or are they only in that single channel? Right?
Yeah.
Take somebody like, just for example, Ryan Kent. He was able to do OCR. He was like, I think if I remember right, when he was a kid, he was like a prodigy runner. And then he was like in OCR. And then now he's doing high rocks. But if I took him and put him in other sports, he would do okay at like some of these other mentally difficult sports. Like I believe he also did a show called The Selection, where it was just like 72 hours or more of just maybe even up to a week of just like military beatdown type stuff,
Right. Yeah.
where he just had to keep working out and he was able to pass and do really well on that. So uh, there's a lot more to it in terms of your general fitness, but I think the ability to adapt to any sport and be able to still perform at a high level. Now, if you go from a super high level in one sport to just tanking in a different sport, unless it is extremely skill based,
Yeah.
then there's not a lot of like you can assume that your fitness is tailored only to that one thing.
Yes.
Because if you look, we'll try to take skill out of it, but if you look at somebody who is a gymnast, right? They move their body very, very well. Um, they can go into other sports like um, a little bit of training in wrestling. They might be able to do okay,
Yeah.
but the skill aspect wouldn't be there. But they're not going to gas out usually in a match. You
Mm.
take a wrestler, um, they're never going to gas out in a basketball game, right? They're going to be able to sprint and run around, but in terms of coordination with the ball, they're usually not very good at scoring a ball on a hoop because it's such a skill-based thing. So
Yeah.
if you look at the skill-based aspects of sports, and you're able to remove that, you can see, well, can you keep up? Can you at least perform well? Like,
Mm.
if you have a wrestler that goes to play basketball, your best ability is just let them be like a forward passing the ball or something because they're not going to be shooting it very well, right? But they're going to be able to run up and down the court a lot.
Yeah. So
Uh,
this general fitness, right? Like specifically towards, talking about high rocks, right? Um, when would you start adding in more of, and I'm saying more of because what we're talking about here is we're not saying not to push the sled and not to do burpee broad jumps and not to do walking lunges, right? But when would you hypothetically add in more of the specific stations in the lead up to a race?
So that's a great question. One of the things I know we do that I've done with Lauren and that she actually spearheads, she's very knowledgeable about just her own training and like, hey, I need more of this, I need less of this. But just some of the patterns we've seen is uh you'll have days, and you should anyway, because any sport can use unilateral movements, but you'll have days where it's like, oh, I'm doing a lot of single leg work today, or hey, I'm doing a lot of upper body work today, or I'm doing squats all the time. Those things translate really well, so you keep those always in the program. And it just so happens that when we do get specific, um you'll be able to use your fitness you've gained more targeted, right? Now, in terms of an actual like high rocks workout, if you're training for a high rocks, we probably, because for a lot of us, you, Lauren, their main sport is high rocks, you're going to keep at least one workout, like one specific workout a week. Even though you might do some of the other movements throughout the week, just within your fitness training, an actual like focus on high rocks workout is at least once a week. A lot of times, especially in season, we'll bump that to twice a week.
Yeah.
And then where you really will start to focus on it is about 4 weeks out, 4 maybe 6 weeks out, depending on like if you have an extra weakness we need to work on, we'll bump it back to 6. But about 4 to 6 weeks out, you start really focusing. And by focusing, I mean, okay, I'm going to have compound high rocks workouts, things such as the sled push and row and lunge workout that you've done a couple times, or like mixing your threshold state runs with other movements, or when you do your threshold runs, we force a buyout at the end. Those are much more specific because you have a targeted sport, a targeted race that you are training for.
Yeah.
And so that's when you'll start to see those like in the program, because that's specific to you, what you have to work on. So
Yeah.
4 to 6 weeks out, you'll get a lot of that. We do sleds, like we'll year round do sleds, but when we're out of season, out of competition, it might be once a week instead of 3 times a week,
Yeah.
And we don't really target the specific movements and the order of the movements until we get closer to the event. And then, like always, we'll run a sim or a similar like type of event for you. So you'll do, the interval high rocks, where you literally run, station, stop, run, station, stop. Like you'll start to experience some things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that structure is and should be the same for everyone? Now, I'll give you I'll give you kind of like a brief kind of story, right? Where I've learned with myself that I don't necessarily feel as if I ever need an off season. Now, the reasons behind that is because fitness and the process to me is more than just training for an event. It's a lifestyle for me. It's something that makes me who I am, or at least what I think about myself in a way, or who I am. And also, I know for a fact, like, I'll be honest with you, I'm not the same person if I haven't gotten after it most days, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of high rocks athletes would be similar. But do you think that structure of, 4 to 6 weeks out, getting a lot more specific, but also having an off season, do you think it's necessary for optimal performance?
No, now if you say an off season, there's not really. We had just been talking about general fitness. It's a year-round thing. The way we kind of look at it is that like you spent all this time like in energy to get this fit. You've reached like a peak. Why would we drop you back down only to get to that again? Right? So I like to think of it as we go up and we're kind of once we reach that, we're in an accumulation zone, right? Might lose just a tiny bit just because instead of instead of just pure aerobic ability, we start to do some more strength because we have to round you out. We talk about general fitness, you have to be well rounded. When you're in a sports season, you're not, you're specific to that sport. But when you're outside of that season or there's not a race for a long time, you have the opportunity to get well rounded in what you're doing.
Yeah.
So that'll include like probably a little bit more lifting. It'll include some technique stuff on things that aren't necessarily your sports and movement patterns that are outside your realm. Uh,
Mm.
Things that you're not exactly doing. Like I know for you, like why not work on some gymnastic skills when you're not waiting for a competition to come up? You can
Mm.
do some skin the cats. You can do some like learn how to do a muscle up or something,
Mm.
get better at using your fitness in more explosive ways. So the next time after you've accumulated, right, this zone, when we go up, you have a broader base of movements you can use to get better fitness in areas that you weren't as fit before.
Yeah.
Um, and you'll keep doing that as well as increasing your strength because in season you do lose a little strength. We go so aerobic that like your one rep maxes, if you test them preseason and right after the season, you're gonna lose like 15%.
Yeah.
So having that ability to just round out your fitness doesn't mean that you're stopping, you're in an off season, you're just in an accumulation zone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that you can get your body used to being at that new level, and then that becomes your base, so that you can go the next time you decide to go up, you're able to take it to the next level, and that's how things go. Nothing's a perfect straight line all the time. It's gonna go up, it's gonna zigzag here a little bit, it's gonna go up, it's gonna zigzag here a little bit because your body has to adapt to it, right? Your body is always trying to find homeostasis. It's
Yeah.
it's literally fighting whatever's out of place, and that rebound effect that it's pulling you towards is where you're gonna feel the best.
Yeah. I'm assuming like some listeners might say, oh, but after a long season or after a 12-week block leading into maybe Worlds coming up, right? All I feel as if I need is some downtime or a deload, if you want to use that word either. Big due to if I continued, I'd burn out. And we talk about we hear that word a lot, burnout. But I'm assuming due to this, let's just call it the general fitness principle, right? And how varied that principle is in terms of broad variable movements. That's the reason why burnout should not occur. Is that a correct assumption or?
Yeah, I mean, so not that burnout can occur. You want to stave it off, right? Um, but you want to mentally deload as much as you want your body to deload. You do need deload weeks. You can't go at a high level all the time, But some of the things are like you can deload in a bunch of different ways. If you want to, instead of running, you can deload by using the machines. If you want to decrease the volume a little bit or decrease the intensity, then just go for long, slow runs or long, slow machine stuff. Like it doesn't have to be some intimidating workout day in and day out, especially like this build up to Worlds. When Worlds is done, you're going to mentally be pretty drained.
Yeah.
No matter how you finish, like uh, no matter what happens in the race, when you come out the next day or a couple days later, you're gonna just be like, it's mentally exhausting trying to stay focused like that.
Yeah.
And so some of the things you're gonna want to do are sit back and relax, right? But what is relaxing? Like you at this point, you just do the things that you enjoy. If you enjoy getting heavy weights in, then go, this is the time to do it. If you
Yeah.
enjoy just sitting on a bike and cruising, good. Let your blood pump, let it go through. If you want to go hike out in the woods, go do that. Like,
Yeah.
take your time. Now, you don't need 3 months. Like,
Mm.
sorry, you don't need 2 months. You don't even need a month.
Yeah.
Like, 1 week, you can start to feel better. 2 weeks, probably most. Um, if you're coming off a super big effort, that third week, you might be ramping back into, hey, I'm going to train again. I'm going to get ready and keep going,
Mm.
because that's what you're trying to do is we enjoy, you, me, most of these athletes enjoy fitness. We
Yeah.
enjoy going and working out. It's not a punishment. You're not punishing yourself for eating. You're not punishing yourself for doing it. Like I've heard when people talk about like, oh, you're on vacation, you don't have to work out. It's like, I like to work out. When I
Yeah.
go on vacation, I like finding new gyms. I like running around and seeing new places uh, in my runs. Like
Mhm.
that's one of the most fun things to do.
Yeah.
And people who say that's not relaxing, that is for me, for you, for a lot of people. And it can be. You don't even have to run. You can walk, jog, 15-minute miles, like whatever you got to do. But just move.
Movement. Yeah. Movement. Um,
So, uh, we're talking about this year-round fitness. Does just a question for you, do you think it depends on what your goals are, uh,
yeah.
sports wise, that whether how much your year-round fitness matters?
Yes. Yes. To yeah. Yes, to a degree, right? Like, let's just hypothetically, someone who's listening to this has the goal after the world champs coming up to make the world champs next year, right? Which is a whole year away, 12 months. If that is the goal that, you want to be at the 2025 world champs, what to do then? Well, you got to work backwards in my eyes. You've got to realize, okay, you've got 12 months, but that doesn't mean just because it's 12 months, we can't start now, or we can't continue now. I think the best thing that you've said is that why would you build all this fitness just for a season to let it slide off by having an off season or calling it an off season? I mean, as you said, Anthony, needing to deload mentally is probably more important. But what I'm trying to get at is that the goal or the goals that you may have of let's just call them the measuring points in terms of time. So what that means in my eyes, sorry, I don't know if that made sense, but what that means in my eyes is, okay, if you do have the goal of world champs next year, well, we've got a pathway to have a look at because we know it's in 12 months' time.
Mhm.
Now, if it's, like Hyrox Worlds as the goal, like that's when you start going, okay, well, how am I going to qualify? And making sure that you're selecting those races and putting them in the diary. And if hypothetically, if there's one in 6 months' time, well, you know that in 6 months' time you're racing, and then you work backwards again. And you go, how am I going to be in tip-top shape for that 6-month race? And then you go, all right, well, what do I have to start doing now so that, again, in 6 weeks or 6 to 4 weeks prior to that race, you know that you're going to start doing the specific stuff that we spoke about. You know, and that's the type of talk and stuff that you should be thinking about, discussing and thinking about with your coaches and your support system and yourself. You know, would you agree with that?
Yeah. So absolutely. I think that, you know, if there's anybody that's like sitting on the couch or needs to, oh, I need to do this and this and this before I can ever make it to that level, or, you know, I just want to finish a high rocks, whatever it is, the very first step is like, hey, you know, you're not 4 to 6. I don't, when I say 4 to 6 weeks out is when you do specific training, that doesn't mean that's when you start training for your first high rocks.
No.
No,
Yeah.
it is a long process. Like if you want to actually compete and be an athlete in the sport or a professional athlete in the sport, it takes 10,000 hours to develop something, right?
Yeah.
To be an expert, to get out of that novice zone. You have to spend the time, and that time can be accumulated through general fitness
Mm.
and then get more specific, but it takes a very long time to become a professional. 10,000 hours, if you're working a normal 40-hour a week job, is 5 years.
Mm.
Um, so if you're training 40 hours a week, it's going to take you 5 years to get to a professional level, right?
Yeah. Wow.
Um, if you look at the people in the sport now that are, you know, top of the game, look at, I'll use Lauren, my wife, as an example. She has been doing CrossFit and running and like nonstop training for what, she's 34 years old, since she was like 16, you know. That's 18 years.
Mm.
uh that's a massive amount of time. I'm sure like we could look at you, JK, and say, how
Mm.
long, when's the last full full week you've taken off where you haven't worked out? Has there
Yeah.
ever been 2 days
No,
back to back?
I can't remember. I
Yeah.
cannot remember. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a very long time, and it's yeah, but he wasn't training for high rocks. Yeah, but you were training like your body,
Mm.
movement in your body, and that'll count. You'll need more specific stuff for like high rocks and everything, but recovery can count in that too. And not like, oh, I get 8 hours of sleep a night, so I'm getting 8 hours a day. I'll like cut my 10,000 hours down. It's your movement patterns, it's all that. So it takes time. And again, when I talk about this, it's not time spent in the gym. I know there's a lot of people out there that spend 5 hours a day in the gym and only work out for an hour.
Mm.
So it's time spent actually moving. That's what you
Yeah.
should be measuring, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so for some people, it'll be a little bit less, some people it'll be a little bit more. But along with that, it's got to be consistency, especially in this type of sport and any type of fitness sport. It has to be consistency, uninterrupted, keep going. Like, I think Laura and I have been together about almost going on 7 years, and I can't remember maybe 5 days in those 7 years where she didn't work out. And I think four of
Wow.
them were because she was too sick to. Like, and it's
Mm.
like once a year, you know. It's not it doesn't happen very often. And I'm not saying everybody needs to go out and work out all the time. You
Mm.
should take down days, rest days, but like days without any movement, you should always be moving. Get
Yeah.
your blood pumping, get your heart rate a little bit elevated, even if it's just a hike.
Mm. It's
So
better than nothing, right? Like I,
yeah.
I tell my athletes as well, may program them 60-minute zone 2 run where it's ignore pace, go out and run, right? In my head, it's like, well, in their heads, it's like, oh, sometimes if they're too busy or they can't get 60 minutes in, well, that's fine. Like, do 40. Do 40 minutes. Get 40 minutes in. Oh no, I don't have 40 minutes. Well,
Just
do
start.
20 minutes.
Yeah.
Like 20 minutes is better than nothing. 10 minutes is better than nothing. And that
I give you a perfect example of that. So over the last year, I've lost 40 pounds. The way I started doing that was I told myself, okay, I need to move for 30 minutes a day. I followed my Apple Watch at the time and was like, I better get all 30 minutes every single day. And then it turned into once I started running, and it's hard to start running when you're heavy. I had 230 pounds on my body. Like it was hard to start running. So what did I do? I got on the treadmill and I would like jog a little bit faster than a walk for 5 minutes. That's what I did. And I was like, okay, 5 minutes. And then I would like go do the lifts because I still enjoyed lifting. So those were my workouts. Like, and then eventually my warm up runs or my warm up cool downs that were 5 minutes long became 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, and then eventually, like when I really started running, it was only 15 minutes. I ran for 15 minutes and it wasn't hard. It was very easy. I ran for 15 minutes, like 5 days a week. And 15 minutes felt like a long time. I did that for 2 weeks. And then the next 2 weeks, I bumped that up to 17 minutes. And I did that for 2 weeks. And then the next 2 weeks, I did it for 20 minutes. And I went up every 2 weeks about 2 to 3 minutes.
Wow.
And then I started adding a long run that was always 5 minutes longer than whatever my runs were. And then once I got to about 45 minutes, I started running outside. I was on a self-propelled treadmill for almost all this. And then I started running outside. And I enjoyed that. I got through that last summer. I remember I was like, okay, I'll do this. And then I started my thresholds. Once I got to like, hey, I can run for 50 minutes, then I started increasing the pace. There was no pace increase until that point. And during that time, I would still do like body weight movements, I'd pull ups, machine stuff, strength, but it was the running that was the hardest thing for me to start.
Yeah, and just progressively adding the time and not worrying about the pace.
Yep. And everybody's going to start somewhere, and you can't think like if I start working out this week, I'm going to be amazingly fit next week. Like it is a very long process. Don't look at if you're trying to get in shape for summer now, it's not going to happen. Right now we're in May. If you want to be in shape, be like, think about where you want to be 4 months from now. In September of this year, are you going to be saying the exact same things? Like, oh, I wish I would have started 4 months ago and then I'd be where I want to be now. Like the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today.
Yeah.
The best time to start working out was years ago. Second best time is today.
Today. Yeah.
So,
I like that. Yeah.
In terms of your general fitness, you have to start somewhere and then you expand outward. And that's like everything, right? Even for you, JK, you're very experienced. You have movements that you can't do yet, right?
Yeah.
So
a lot of them, yeah.
Yeah. So we have this confined area of fitness that we're able to hold you in, but if more movements we can add, that'll grow. And as you get big, as you get better, that grows and it'll get exponentially bigger the more movements you can do.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah. 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 I like it. I like it. Well, Anthony, we might leave it there.
Okay. That
Yeah.
sounds good. Has a good day. We don't have an official sign off yet, so we'll figure out how we're going to cut this, but we'll sign everybody off. I'm Anthony Parasini, coach of the Hybrid Engine, and my co-host here is James Kelly. He has his JK Hybrid Coaching platform. You can find both of us on the Fitter app. You're still on Fitter, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
You can find both of us on the Fitter app. And if you're choosing a coach, don't feel bad. We get a lot of yeses and nos, but pick one that's right for you. Everybody has different feelings, so make sure that you're really like who you're with, because the only way you're gonna get fit, stay fit, and perform well is consistency, and the program you stick to is the best program for you.
That's it. Thanks for listening, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.